again, my friends. This is my third attempt at my live. So I apologize if you've been on with me and it's all been weird and janky, but hopefully this will work. So I'm going to go back and talk again about what I'm here to tell you about today, which is worry and anxiety. We're going to talk about this because it is a huge, huge struggle for a lot of people right now. The lockdown and coronavirus has been a huge time of worry and anxiety for a lot of people. And some of us are worried about things like losing our jobs, getting sick, our kids getting sick. I mean, anything and everything, falling behind in schoolwork, right? Our kids not being able to do their schoolwork and falling behind. Sometimes we worry that we're not parenting in the best way that we can. We worry about what's going to happen in the fall, in the future, right? What's going to happen with the coronavirus in the future. Maybe we feel like we're giving our kids too much screen time, and we worry that they're going to, have some sort of damage from it. And the list just goes on and on and on. So if this sounds like you and you're worried about all of these things or some of these things, know that you're not alone, and this is totally normal. So let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Adrienne Bishop, and I am a certified positive discipline educator and a life coach for parents. And that means that I work on helping parents to stay calm and to be confident in their parenting so that they can raise happy, successful adults. So worry and anxiety have always been a part of my life personally. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I used to worry all the time that bad things were going to happen to my parents, bad things were going to happen to me, bad things were going to happen to my family, right? I couldn't even watch scary shows or movies. Like, it was too scary for me. Like, it's crazy. I still can't even do that. I still can't watch scary shows because the brain and the imagination just takes over, and I'm just thinking nonstop about them. I don't know if you guys feel that too. I know some people love scary movies, but it's just not my thing. And when I was a kid, I just thought, worry was normal. Worry was how you were supposed to deal with things that you didn't understand. And I thought this was just part of me. This was part of who I was. Then I became an adult, and that worry actually turned into a really bad anxiety. Anxiety then, really impaired me from dealing with challenges. And when a challenge came up that was really hard for me, a big thing in my life, my fears took over, and I was forced to deal with, head on with all this worry and anxiety. And so I ended up going to therapy. And for a few years, I worked on it. I worked on it really hard. And I really wanted to move past all of these, these feelings that were getting in my way. And I did. I got to a really good place where I was, healthy and functioning and happy. But I knew something was missing. Something just wasn't quite gelling. And then when I found life coaching and the tools that I teach my clients now, it was like a light bulb just went off. And all of the worry and the anxiety, some of it was still there, but it just wasn't a problem anymore. And so if you struggle or your child struggles with worry and anxiety, you are in good company. I feel you. I totally feel you. And what I'm going to talk about today, hopefully, will be a huge help to you. It's the tools that I learned in life coaching. I'm going to talk about the ones that have really helped me to regain my confidence and to stop worrying so much. So why we worry is that our brains hate the unknown. So it has a really good function. It's helping us to survive, right? It's like our brain's way of figuring out what might happen in the future and trying to solve for all of the problems that might happen before they do. And so it feels really useful, right? It helps us to feel like in control of something that we don't have control over. So we really do think like our brains use worry a lot to help us feel in control, and we think it's useful. Like if we worry about what might be happening in the future and we figure out what might happen, we're going to feel better about it. But I wanted to offer one of the ways that has been hugely helpful for me to remember when I worry about something that I can't control, which is that we think that if we prepare for every emergency in our mind and we go through every scenario, we're going to be better prepared for it. But in reality, we don't need to do that. Our brains are already trained to respond really healthily and successfully to emergencies in the moment. So no matter what happens in the moment, you will be able to handle that situation because our brains have a built-in survival mode and survival technique of flight or fight. And we'll be able to step up. Our stress response will appear, and we'll be able to handle the situation and deal with it in the way we need to. So in that sense, we don't need to be going through every scenario and planning it out in advance all the time, right? Ones that are worst case scenarios. We don't necessarily need to be planning them out. When if indeed it does happen, we will be able to step up to that plate and be able to handle it in a really healthy way. So, I just want to offer that worry is not useful at all. There is no use for it. I don't know if you've heard this term of the saying of worry pretends to be useful. So it kind of feels like it is. It feels like we're taking action, we're doing something. But guess what? That action that we're taking is actually robbing us of our present moment. It's bringing us into the future that we don't even know what's going to happen. We can't solve for it, we can't control it, and it's taking us out of the present moment. And when that happens, guess what happens? We disconnect from our kids. We aren't, enjoying our lives. We're not present for the people in our lives in that moment. And this can be a major issue with relationships, right? And just we feel so much worse when we worry. So I just want to offer that it is not necessary. We do not actually need worry as part of our skill set as humans. When we worry, in fact, our emotions take over. And then we can't even access the logic that we need to solve for any problems that are happening now. So if something is worrying you about the future, if something happens in the present, your emotional energy has just been zapped by all of the worry that you've been doing. And you, in the present moment, have less energy to deal with what's happening. So it actually does rob you and takes away from the energy of your current life and what's happening in your life. So, like I was saying, in an emergency, we don't need to worry about trying to figure out every little step because our brains can handle emergencies in the moment. We're made to function that way. We're made to function in our highest capacity, actually, when we need to be there. So, if we're constantly in worry, it's like we're constantly in an emergency situation. And that means we're constantly in the flight or fight mode. And that actually stresses our system a lot, right? And lowers our emotional and our physical energy. So we don't want to be in worry. It zaps all of our energy and all of our emotional power. And so the best thing to do is to really remember that worry is optional. It's not something that we need as people, as humans. So I want to talk a little bit about anxiety because it's a little different than worry. Anxiety is actually a secondary emotion, which means that it happens after you resist all of those primary emotions like fear, sadness, worry. Worry is actually a primary emotion. Anything like frustration and all those things, those are primary emotions. If we're not processing those emotions and we're not acknowledging them, then anxiety can creep up. It's a secondary emotion like anger. And so anxiety tends to be much stronger than worry, and it makes it more difficult for us to actually live our lives in the way we want to when we're anxious. It takes us completely out of our present moment, makes us think only about ourselves, and then keeps us from actually living the way we want to. So now, let me know if that makes sense, and if this is something that you can, get on board with. Does it make sense that maybe worry might not be the best path to take if we have other options, right? So I wanted to talk about how do we stop worrying? How do we deal with worry and anxiety in a really helpful way? So I just want to talk about worry as an emotion, right? So worry is an emotion. Emotions are caused by our thoughts. So worry is an emotion that is created by our thinking. Okay? So in that case, if the worry is created by our thinking and our thinking is optional and completely under our control, then we do not need to have worry as a feeling, right? It's not something that we need that we're powerless in, to have. We actually can have a choice. We can choose thoughts that don't lead toward worry. And so, like I was saying initially, worry, the emotion actually gets in our way of solving problems that we maybe need to solve, right? And actually, stepping up to whatever we want to do, facing our fears. It gets in the way of us figuring out how to do that and solving problems. So I have an example of one of my clients. He has a son who's in kindergarten who was refusing to do his homework. And when we started to coach and talk through it, it turns out that he is actually feeling like he's worried that his child's going to fall behind in school, and then as a result hate school, and then as a result not want to go and not be successful as an adult. So his worry was going so far that he was going all the way down to, now as an adult, this child is not going to be successful because of this one situation. The pandemic, e-learning is not successful for his son. So he's translated that all the way to, he's not going to be a successful adult. And guess what? We all do this. This is totally human and normal. This is something that we all do. We futurize and catastrophize. So going to these places in our mind feels useful to us. Like if we can just think through what might happen, then maybe we can prevent it from happening. But it doesn't actually work that way. We never can prevent things from happening outside of ourselves. We have no control over what happens in the world, no control over what happens in our children's minds or lives, right? This is their life, their behavior, their actions, their thoughts that actually control their lives. So when we worry and we think that it's useful and it's happening, so that, there's nothing we can do about it, it's just happening, then it's not useful for us to actually worry, right? In that situation. So his worry was even getting in the way of him helping his child be successful in his own way, right? So the child wasn't being successful at the online schoolwork, but guess what? The kid's smart. The kid can do math and reading without a problem. And he has so many other interests that the dad wasn't even seeing that there was a possibility that these other interests might be a place to go to teach him these skills, right? And so when we talk through it, the worry was getting in the way. It was causing him to not be able to see solutions to the problem. And then it was also disconnecting him from his kid, from his child. He was so frustrated and worried that he wasn't able to even have that nice relationship that he wanted so badly with his kid. So when we get into worry, we pull away from the relationships that we currently are in, and we pull away from connection from people because we're so inside our own minds. We cannot focus outside of it. So that's one example. So instead, this is what I would recommend you do. Work on accepting what's happening in the present moment, always coming back to the present moment, okay? And the way you do this is that you find thoughts that resonate with you, that cause you to feel acceptance. And this is what I do with my clients. I help them to find these thoughts that are getting in their way that they didn't realize. And then I help them to find thoughts that move toward more neutral feelings, not positive. We don't want to always go to positive, but the neutral feeling is what's going to help us to get where we want to go. We want to get acceptance. We want to feel acceptance. That is our goal. Once we accept the present moment and we accept the situation around us, realizing that it is not good or bad, we just decide, and we can get to that place of, okay, I am home with my kids. Okay, I am, homeschooling them. Okay, they're frustrated with their schoolwork. How is this not a problem? We can get to acceptance. Okay, then when we first, what we want to do is process the worry and then move back to what's happening in the moment. Okay. So if you have worry, you process it, but you don't act on it. You don't feed it. You acknowledge it and you move back to the present moment. And then we want to remind ourselves that worry is only caused by a sentence in our mind. Okay. No big deal. And anxiety and worry are emotions, and emotions are something our bodies can handle. We were built to handle emotions. It's totally something that is not, nothing's gone wrong. This is part of who we are as humans. These feelings are going to come up and it's okay. Our bodies can handle it. And they will not hurt you. Nothing has gone wrong. So in that sense, we can be worried, feel anxiety, and still move forward and do what we need to do, as long as you're conscious of what thoughts are creating it and the fact that thoughts are creating it, and then not acting from that worry. We want to act from a different place, a place of acceptance. So this is really exactly what I was teaching my client about, how the worry is actually getting in his way of, number one, connecting with his child, and number two, helping him in the way he really so desires to help him. He wants him to be a successful adult. Well, guess what? There's not one way to get there. There's not one way to parent a child to be a successful adult. And he was only seeing one way because he was so concerned that it was all his fault that his child was not getting the work done. So we want to talk about in your kids. What the heck do you do when your child is worrying or anxious? The first thing you want to do, you want to check in with yourself. What thoughts are you having about why your child's worrying or the fact that they have worry or anxiety? What thoughts are going through your head? Are they thoughts that are more worry, more anxiety, anxiety about their anxiety? Are those thoughts actually helpful or are they actually stressing you out? This is something that you have complete control over acknowledging and changing if you are able to have the awareness, right? So then what you want to do is you want to go to a neutral thought. And again, this is a lot, but this is what I teach my clients how to do. And it's amazingly powerful. You go to a neutral thought that gets you to acceptance of your child being in that state, right? Your child is in a state of worry and anxiety. Guess what? It's okay. Nothing's gone wrong. It's okay. You don't have to solve for it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You can just allow all of it. Allow your feelings, allow their feelings. And once we process through our own worry and anxiety, we can move past it and we can help them process it. We can even go to validation, right? Saying, oh my goodness, of course you're worried about this. This is a really, it's unknown and our brains don't like unknowns. And we try to figure it all out, but we can't. And that doesn't feel very good. And it's okay to be worried. I get worried too sometimes, right? And so we don't want to contradict what they're feeling or saying. We want to make sure that we're empathizing. And we don't want to always solve it for them. It's not necessary. They can feel worried and anxious, and we can feel whatever we want near them while they're worried and anxious. So we also want to remember this is not something we can control in our children. We cannot control how they feel, how they think, right? We can only control our own thoughts and feelings around what they're thinking and feeling. So when you're neutral and unattached to your child's emotions, you can better support them. Okay? This is what our goal is when I coach with people, is to get them to neutral so that they can parent in the best way that they can and feel so much relief around what's happening with their kids and not be so stressed or worried about it as much, which then makes us way more effective as a parent. It helps us to get in there and not be attached to an outcome, not want to change our kids. And we can just be there and sit and allow for whatever is going on with them. It's so powerful. I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you with someone that you've loved, they've sat with you and allowed you to feel or be without contradicting or without involving their own ego, right? It's a very powerful situation. And that's what coaching is. When I coach my clients, that's what happens. I sit there in without having my own ego involved. And I help you see what's happening in your mind that's getting in the way of you actually being unattached to these outcomes with your kids, or being unattached to worry, and letting go of things that aren't helpful and useful in your life so that you can be unburdened and can release some of these negative feelings that aren't necessary. And not spin in them and continue the drama from them, right? And just allow them to be there. So that's what I have for you today, guys. If you have any more questions or want to know how I can help you further with this technique and these ways to help you to really get to a place of neutrality and a place where you're just accepting in a really, really pure, positive way, this is what I do with my clients. And I would welcome and invite you to jump on a chat with me, and I can let you know how I can actually help you with your specific situation. I'll put the link in the comments, and I'd love to talk to you guys. This is like one of my favorite topics to talk about because I've gone through so much of it myself. And so I get it and I hear you. And this is something that it's such valuable work to do because it changes everything when you can really work on it. So hi, Kit. I don't know if you're still here, but hi, thanks for coming on. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. You can put it in the replay. And I hope you have a wonderful day. It's beautiful here. Hope it's beautiful where you are. And I will see you next Thursday. All right, guys, take care. Have a good one.